Morning, everyone. This is Robin Osborne from Michigan State University, and on behalf of myself and my EAB University coordinators, who are Amy Stone from the Ohio State University Extension and Anne Marie Nagel from Purdue University, I welcome you to the EAB University webinar entitled Spring Tune-Up on Emerald Ash Borer Information. Today's presentation comes to you from Purdue University. Dr. Cliff Sadof, professor of entomology, has been researching emerald ash borer for several years and has also worked cooperatively with entomologists at other universities. And this has given him a good overall working knowledge of what's going on in the realm of EAB. Here, I'm going to bring up Dr. Sadof's PowerPoint here. I hope this is the right one. If it's not, I'm sure that they'll let me know.
No problem.
This presentation is being recorded, so if you or someone you know would like to view it again or for the first time, please go to www.emeraldashborer, that's all one word, .info, and click on the link for this morning's presentation. The recorded webinar should be available for viewing later today. During this presentation, Dr. Sadof and myself will be the only ones who have access to audio. So if you have questions or comments, please feel free to type them in the chat pod. And to keep this presentation running smoothly, any questions that cannot be answered by myself or Anne Marie Nagel during the course of the presentation will be answered by Dr. Sadof at the end of the presentation. So after today's presentation, we will be posting a survey that we hope you will fill out in order to help us make these EAB University webinar presentations more useful to you. The first 10 people who fill out the survey will receive an EAB University goodie bag filled with fun and useful items. We thank you for participating in today's webinar and hope it is useful to you. With that, welcome Dr. Sadof, and feel free to begin your presentation.
Okay, I think I'll begin by saying I think this is the wrong presentation that's on there. Let's see if I can. I'll double check to make sure I got the right one. Okay, we'll get this thing going on here. This is a new one.
Check.
This is. Where is this? Off here.
Okay, what we want to do is you want the one for May. That's probably my fault.
Let's see. Let's make sure.
Okay.
This is the one.
I've got two here.
We got two. Okay, the one that I have that is the correct one has only 48 slides.
Okay.
Okay, and the last slide. Yeah, the last slide will be emerald ash borer. We'll refer to the emeraldashborer.info site. Let's see. It says April 2012, but I just see.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hold on, folks.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out. While Robin's getting this thing together, taking the time out from the busy schedule. I know many of you who are out right now are probably trying to treat trees at this point in time. I can see we have about 44, 45 people here. Okay, and this should be it, I think. And if not, we will just move it.
See if it is.
Okay. Oh, there goes my big surprise. Yeah, I won't know till the very end, actually. So, hold on. Okay, let's go back. Okay. So this is a spring tune-up, mid-spring, early summer, I guess, given the year that we're going on. And I think the point of today's talk is I want you to know what tools we have available for trying to save our ash trees, and know that if you delay, what you're going to wind up happening is that the emerald ash borer is going to make the decisions for you, and your emerald ash borer management program will just be a tree replacement program. And I don't think that that's what needs to be happening given the amount of tools that we have. So when EAB calls the shots, this is what we get by the flying chainsaw. You'll see that we have nothing but stumps towards the end. Now, just to briefly review the biology of emerald ash borer and what it does. This is a boring insect that bores just beneath the bark, feeds on the vascular tissue, cuts off its capacity to bring liquid up into the canopy, and it basically dries out and dies. And when the infestation really gets going, you can kill trees rather quickly. Here's the life cycle. Can you see the pointer? Somebody just type yes. If not, I'm going to try this here. Yeah, if you, there you go. So this is better. Okay, great. Emerald ash borer right now is in the process of coming out of the trunk. Okay, so you might see some pre-pupae, or you might see some adults coming out. They will again feed on the leaves. They chew for a couple of weeks so that the females can mature their eggs. They will then mate, as you see this happy couple over here, and then they will lay eggs, which are usually in cracks and in crevices. My arrow doesn't want to go any further. There we go. That's nice. Okay. They go in the cracks and crevices where they lay the eggs, and then the larvae will hatch from there, and then they'll make their characteristic galleries. And then, so the thing is that as far as we're concerned, the opportunities for control is really trying to direct so that to make sure that there's a lot of poison in the leaves to kill the adult beetles, okay, before they get to lay their eggs. Some of the insecticides may in fact kill some of the young larvae just when they hatch from the eggs, but I think we want to try and kill the adults as well as the larvae. We want to try a two-pronged approach. What kinds of signs and symptoms are you going to see? Many of these one of the early signs you can see are woodpecker holes. These are holes that are left by woodpeckers who are looking for emerald ash borer. They're quite capable of seeing them. You can also see vertical splits in the trunk, and ultimately, when you see in those splits, you'll see this classic zigzag gallery. And then, when the infestation gets going, you notice the thinning of the canopy, and then you'll notice this little tree within a tree over here, which is the Warmack sprouts that are coming out, the last gasp for air of the emerald ash borer. One of the key messages I'm trying to get, not that I'm a shill for the chemical companies, the reality is that I don't get a dime from the companies when they use your product, so I don't really have a vested interest. My interest really is trying to save the trees. I'm not trying to endorse any one product, but there are pesticides that are available that can protect your trees. These trees in this particular photo over here were taken in Fort Wayne on Clinton Avenue, and I'm standing under dead ash trees when I'm taking these pictures. Okay, so the population is really roaring there right now, and it's quite possible to keep trees alive. Why do you want to keep trees alive? Well, I think the reason we want to keep trees alive is that they are valuable to us. As you can see here in the tree in this picture here, this is a rather large tree in front of a dormitory here on campus at Purdue, and when we say large, we measure it in terms of the diameter at the trunk at about 4.5 feet above the soil line, diameter breast height, which is about where that dotted line is above my bicycle over there. And this shows you how substantial a 22-inch DBH tree could be. Well, it looks substantial, it looks like it's worth something, but how much is it really worth? Well, there's this really nice program called the National Tree Benefit Calculator. This might be handy when you're talking to clients and municipalities. This tree calculator, what you do is you put in your zip code. I put in the zip code for West Lafayette. I chose a white ash, 22-inch DBH, and it says that it provides $307 each year in benefits. Okay, and it gives you a breakdown of the benefits in terms of, you can see that there's a lot of $114 are in property values, $96 are in stormwater, and the rest are in electrical costs and heating and cooling costs and maybe some carbon credits. But I think this, I want to draw your attention to the stormwater. In Fort Wayne, where they're starting to lose the trees, they're starting to have some problems with stormwater because once the trees are gone, they stop collecting the water, it starts causing some really big infrastructure problems. So the whole idea is that the trees are valuable also in terms of dollars as well. Okay, now what I want to do is give you some research that my colleague Dan Herms at Ohio State University shared with me to give you some of the basis for the most recent recommendations. The first study has to do with soil trenches applied to ash trees using imidacloprid. And they were applied, there are 4 treatments. They were applied in the spring at the 1.4 gram active rate, which is the 1x rate. The 1x rate was applied in the spring and again in the fall using the Merit product. And then there's a generic product called Zytec, got by Rainbow Tree, which was also applied in the fall. But they also used a double rate in the spring and a double rate in the fall. And we wanted to see if it was possible to protect these larger trees with imidacloprid, and he also wanted to see if the timing of the year impacted this. Okay. So you can see in the next slide, I want to explain how this thing works. Okay, this line over here, the y-axis, refers to the percentage of the canopy that is declining. And the reason you know this is that this white line, if you follow it through time, you'll notice that in 2006, none of the trees were showing any decline, but by 2008, the untreated trees had 40% of the canopy being thinned, almost 90% in 2009, and in 2010, nearly 100% of the canopy was thinned. And what we can see here was that the fall injections at the 1x rate of the imidacloprid, when they applied it annually, started to break down in 2009. It wasn't working, and even by 2010, it wasn't working all that well. We're having more than half the canopies being lost. Okay. Yet, if you applied Merit at the 1x rate or the 2x rate in the fall or the spring, we had really good control in 2009. It started to break up, but you know the trees started to heal themselves due to the fact that most of the emerald ash borers were probably dead because the trees had all been dead had been completely defoliated for over a year, and the trees are starting to recover. So this is really good evidence to suggest that the 1x rate in the fall, in the spring, and the 2x rate in the fall and spring are adequate to protect these trees. Okay, now what about some injections with emamectin benzoate, commonly known as triage? These trees are large trees, 20 to 25 inch DBHs. Data was also conducted by Dan Herms in an area that was heavily infested. And he was comparing the low rate, the medium high, and the high rate. And he treated them all in 2006 when none of the trees were actually showing a lot in the way of signs. And then in 2007, the controls are starting to show some problems. 2008, they're showing problems. But you see that none of the trees that were treated with either the low rate, okay, the medium rate or the high rate are showing any symptoms. So this shows that the product can last for 2 years, even when there is 50% canopy loss in the untreated. Even in year 3, there was some control with the very high rate over here, but that was. This is the reason why. But the fact that there's a change between 2008 and 2009 is the reason why most of the recommendations are for treating it every 2 years. Remember, these are very large trees. Okay, so that's the research behind this stuff. What do we have in terms of products that are available for people to use? Well, imidacloprid is the primary product that's available for homeowner. It's available to be applied at the 1x rate or the 2x rate. You can use Bayer tree and shrub and Fertilome tree and shrub, and then there's an Octrol product that's available as well. Many people have a hard time trying to understand how to apply this stuff to the soil. We have a video on our website, eabindiana.info, that you can link to that gives you a demonstration about how to go about doing this. This year, due to the very extensive drought that we have right now, one thing people have to realize is that if you pour your imidacloprid onto the soil at this point in time on bone dry soil, those trees will probably never see any of that imidacloprid. It's going to be bound right up into the clay. And the reason for that is that it's just going to stick, it likes to stick to the dry soil particles. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to irrigate that tree the day before, okay, or maybe 2 days before, so it's nice and moist, and then the following day, then you can pull back the mulch, pour the product around the base of the tree, and then put the material back on there again. And that way, you'll be sure that the material will get into the tree roots and not be completely sucked up by the plant. Okay. And this slide here is just here to remind you that we're trying to put the material all within 1 foot of the trunk of the tree. Okay. Don't evenly disperse it out through the drip line. That's not going to work. You want to put all your stuff as close to the tree as possible, and that's where a lot of the studies will. That's how the studies will conduct. All right. Now, for some professionals, professionals can actually use a device called a soil injector. This is one that I use. I guess that I picked up from David Tree. It's just a probe that injects the product below the surface of the ground. That way, I don't have to pull back the mulch and the like. But you would still have to make sure that the soil was wet before you put that inside there. This works really well for the imidacloprid products. You can also use the dinotefuran. The data on dinotefuran to date is only up to 12 inches at this point in time. What's really nice about dinotefuran is that you can actually spray the trunk, okay, and it goes right through the trunk. So it works really well on the thin bark trees, at least on the trees that are up to 12 inches, okay. And the trick is that you have to make sure that you put enough material in the tank so that after you've completely covered the trunk with this product, it gets the same dose that it would had you poured it in. So you have to make sure that you calibrate it before you do that. Currently, there are studies that are underway to see if dinotefuran can work on larger trees. That stuff is going to be evaluated this June, and I fully expect that we could use dinotefuran with larger trees. But that will be coming in the future. Other stuff. Let's go back to the triage product. Triage emamectin benzoate can be applied once every 2 years. The delivery inside the trunk really helps get the product in there rather quickly. I note here that it reduces the potential for environmental contamination. I think this is really comes into play if you are working in a sensitive area. If your tree is right next to a stream or next to a lake, that sort of thing, and you don't want any runoff to get on there, that's kind of what this situation is. But most lawns and such in urban areas, that's not really going to be that sort of a situation. We have a nice video on our EAB info where we had one of the campus staff was applying this product, and it's just something that a homeowner could take a look at to get a feel for what's going to be going on, because a lot of people are really unfamiliar with this process. All right, so in summary, what's new with the insecticides? Imidacloprid, okay. Imidacloprid, we want to make sure that you are that you apply it in the spring from April to mid-May, or if you at the 1x rate, but if you can apply it in the fall, you're going to have to use the double rate. Dinotefuran, we want you to put on the spring. What's nice about dinotefuran is that it's a lot more soil mobile in the tree than, say, imidacloprid. So it can get up into the tree in time to kill the beetles, especially if you're in the later stage, as we are right now. So I think the imidacloprid season has pretty much stopped for this year, and we're now moving into the dinotefuran season and the emamectin benzoate season. Emamectin benzoate you can apply from bud break to mid-June for optimal control, and then you can apply it in midsummer until you get fall color. But the key thing is that because this product lasts for a long period of time, the limiting factor is just transpiration rates. What that means is that if the tree is not transpiring, sucking up a lot of fluids from the soil, it's simply not going to suck that product up into the canopy. If you get that stuff into the canopy, it's eventually going to kill beetles. If you apply that product in now, okay, before mid-June, before the bulk of the beetles have flown and started to lay eggs, you're going to be killing the beetles before they get a chance to lay the eggs. If you wait until mid to late summer, you'll be killing more of next year's adult beetles. You may be killing some of this year's larvae, just like most of the products we believe are killing the larvae that hatch from the eggs. But if you apply the Meccan benzoate late in the season, you won't be killing the adults that are laying this year's eggs because they've already laid the eggs. And I think the double of you get the most bang for your buck if you're going to be applying it early in the season. Operationally, many people have a problem getting the products into the trees during this short window, and when neighborhoods are starting to lose trees and the clients want products in there the first thing, you're going to be helping your customers next year if you do put a fall application. So both are effective. One might last for more years than the other. Okay. This spring, what a spring! It sure was pretty amazing. In March, we had 307 degree days, which is a measure of warmth using a 50-degree day base. It's basically the average temperature, the max and the minimum divided by 2 minus 50. And last year, we were only at 62 degree days on March 31st, but on March 31st, we're up at 300, just far and away by March 31st. April 15th, we're still about twice of where we were last year. And what's interesting is that 450 degree days, which is the date that emerald ash borer is supposed to come up and start flying, it was reached this year on April 30th, which is a full 3 weeks ahead of 2011, about a week ahead of 2010, and almost 3 weeks ahead of 2011. So it just means the flight's earlier. We're not going to have more than one generation a year. I think that if you get these products out there using the normal deadline times, I think you'll probably be okay. All right. One of the messages that we want to get through on a regular basis is that research is constantly changing with emerald ash borer. A few years ago we were saying not to treat trees. That imidacloprid and the neonicotinoids would only protect trees 8 inches and smaller. Now with new data, we know that we can protect larger trees. So that's why there's a change in some of these recommendations. So visit the EABindiana.info website for Indiana information. There's also the emeraldashborer.info site, which is the regional link to this information as well. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about decision. Not every tree needs to be protected. Clearly, the one on the far left is a healthy tree in front of a white house over here. This tree is providing shade, it's providing full complement of environmental benefits. The ones to the right, which are already showing signs of thinning, or they look like they haven't been planted correctly, they're having some problems. These trees simply, are not worth trying to save because they're already going to be dying. Okay, so the theme really is that you don't want to invest your treatment dollars into trees which are already causing problems. Look at this tree over here. On this tree over here, you'll notice that it is asymmetrical. Okay, there are already structural cracks showing at the base of the tree, and it's leaning over to the left. This tree is going to have to be removed for arboricultural reasons. So if it's not arboriculturally sound, don't treat the tree because treatment is expensive and you don't want to invest money in something. In this next one over here, we know that we can save trees that are half defoliated, like this one over here, but ask yourself, is there any tree that's going to be left? If you look at this particular tree over here, this part is all dead, okay? All this stuff's going to have to come out. The only thing that's going to be left is this little part that's sticking out over here. That's clearly not worth saving. I don't think you're going to take a big rod and try and train that tree to stand up again. I mean, this tree is just simply not worth trying to save. Here's another one. I've talked to a lot of people in utility companies, and many utility companies have a new policy that they are going to be cutting down trees that are under utility lines. Any ash tree that's under a utility line, they're going to remove because they see that as a potential maintenance nightmare. Because if the tree dies and it's filled with dead limbs. It could fall down on the power lines and cause communities to lose power. And utility companies are in the business of protecting the public from exposure to electricity, and they're also trying to keep them with a supply of electricity that can heat and cool their houses. So if you have clients that have trees under power lines, just recommend that they remove those trees and plant it with a tree that's not going to get into the power line, rather than trying to invest dollars in saving those trees. Other situations, and others are ash trees, but many trees have outgrown their planting sites. These trees, so if you have a bunch of ash trees that are buckling the sidewalk, starting to ruin the road, those trees are going to have to come out. Don't spend money trying to save them. All right. So now the question is, how long do we have to protect these trees? One of the things that I want to talk about is this invasion wave concept. Okay? You want to think of it kind of like a tidal wave, in that the emerald ash borer, it comes into the community, it builds up in number, and then it kills all the ash trees, and then the population drops. Okay, and after the population drops, you don't really need to protect the trees for as long. And this is sort of an example. Let's say before EAB is found in a county or within 15 miles, okay, very few trees are showing symptoms of emerald ash borer. Okay, once it's found in there, maybe 1% of your trees might be showing emerald ash borer, but typically we're assuming that the number of trees that are expressing symptoms double every year. So after it's been detected in your county, maybe you get 2%, then it goes from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32, 64 to 100%. But typically it's really hard for people to find trees when they have 2% or less of the trees are showing any symptoms. And think of it like this: if 1 out of every 5 trees in a city is an ash tree, and only 1 out of every 50 trees, which is a 2%, are showing symptoms, that's going to be very hard to find. It's even going to be hard to find when 4%, okay, 1 out of every 25 trees are showing symptoms. And when 1 out of 12 of your trees are starting to show symptoms, then we have a chance of seeing it. So we have a medium probability of finding it. But once you start having 1 out of 16 trees, which is basically 1 out of every 6 trees showing symptoms, then I think you're going to be able to detect that emerald ash borer is in your community and showing some problems. But the problem with that is that once you're at 16%, you have 1, 2, 3 years before 100% of your trees are showing symptoms. And by then, it's really pretty late. So, how do we view this situation here? Okay. Ben McCulloch has described this in terms of the early phase as the cusp of the wave, and then as the population builds, we are in the crest of the wave, and then we go into a post-crest period, which is when after the population crashed. The solid line refers to the affected ash. The dotted line refers to the proportion, the EAB populations. Okay, so I think from a management standpoint, we want to be very aggressive as in the cusp and the crest phase as the populations are building, because that's when you can be most successful in protecting trees which have yet to be damaged. You have to realize all these products are systemic in nature. They're going to go through the roots, or they're going to go through the injection that's inside the tree, up into the tops of the leaves. Right? And if that product is not, if they're already damaged, the product is not going to get up in there, and the trees may not be safe. But once all the population goes down, and the beetles most of the trees are dead, the beetles are dead, you can then ease back on the amount of pesticide that you can use and go into more of a maintenance phase. Okay, so we at Purdue developed this cost calculator that helps you compare how much you're going to spend with emerald ash borer. The new calculator is the calculator 2.0. It's available at eabindiana.info, and we use this invasion wave model to drive the cost predictions. And I'm going to run you through the strategy of replacing unsafe ash as you go versus a preemptive removal of ash trees versus saving just half your trees. Let's see what this turns into. And I'm going to do this with a forest that had 1,200 ash trees with a nice even distribution. This is the 0 to 3, 3 to 6, this is the 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, and so on. These are trees of various different sizes using this distribution down over here. And the costs are, the assumption is $3 per inch of DBH per year. During the aggressive phase, we'll treat yearly. The maintenance phase will treat every 3 years, and we assume the treatments are saving 95% of the trees, and the annual mortality of replaced or saved trees is 2%. Tree size that you're replacing is a 1 1/4 inch tree. It's going to cost about $400 to purchase, plant, and stake the tree. I chose this yearly treatment because it has nicer graphs than if I chose the treating every 2 years with different types of products. Okay. All right, so what we see here is that the decision to the decision to replace trees as they go is a budget-busting situation. Okay, as the number of trees that die accumulate during the year, just before all the trees are dead, we're spending $347,000 to protect these trees. A preemptive strike of removing trees and replacing trees as they go, it's going to cost about $107,000 peak in order to remove the trees. If we're saving half the trees, you're spending a lot less, about $25,000 to $30,000 less per year to save those trees. And then after the wave passes, you then treat every other year. Okay, so you start spending less money. And the cumulative costs over time, you see, pretty much after 25 years, you're spending about the same amount of money for all these things, but you have a much better control on your cost if you're protecting half your trees. So this is a really good argument for trying to save your trees if you're trying to manage your annual costs. Now, what do you get from this? Well, what's interesting, if you remove and replace, if you remove your trees, whether proactively or as they die, and then you replace them as you're removing them, you're going to have about half the forest you started out with after 25 years. But if you are saving half your trees, after 25 years, you will almost regain the entire size of your forest. And clearly, you have about twice as much forest as you would have, okay, had you not saved half the trees. So you get a lot more benefits for the same amount of money. Okay. Is early better than later? Okay, so here's a situation. One of the things we did with this cost calculator is we allowed you to stage your infestation based on the percentage of trees that were lost to date. Okay. And so let's say what happens if we waited until 4% of the trees were, until 8% of the trees were showing signs like as in year 4. And what we see with this comparison here is that the peak cost is a lot higher. Okay, it's $40,000 higher if you let them remove them as they go. Your annual costs are about $200,000 a year versus $100,000 a year if you're just using preemptive removal. And then if you're just saving half of them, it's $50,000 a year more because you're compressing all those costs over a shorter period of time. Okay, so earlier implementation will lower your annual costs. Okay. Can you play catch-up? Chad Tickle, the city art forester over there, did a really nice job. He had a situation where it was detected in the fall of 2006, and then in 2008, 80% of the trees were treated with imidacloprid. I think they were hoping they would still have money, but the stock market crashed in 2008. Nobody had any money. They had reduced the number of trees that they could save to only about 1,000 of the initial 14,000. And but the question is, what did that do to the rate of removal? Had he not used any insecticide, based on my model that I used before, you would see that this dash line here, which suggests that by 2011 all the trees would have had to be removed. Well, actually, the number that are being removed is actually this solid line over here. You see that he actually greatly delayed the rate of years to remove the unsafe ash trees in Fort Wayne. So if you have a situation where you're starting to see injury, you don't have a lot of money, if you could put some insecticide out on some of these trees, you can actually spread out your removals, and that would be another way of containing some of your costs. Okay. So my conclusions are, by just protecting half the ash trees, you can actually reduce your annual costs, and delaying your protection plan until the symptoms actually occur will greatly improve your maximum annual cost. So, take-home message: be proactive. ML-4 is in your county, within 15 miles of where your cities are. Start your protection program, because waiting is only going to cost you a lot of money, a lot more money. All right. Now, how do you get things moving? How do you get people to start buying into protection programs and taking proactive action? Chad Tickle acted as an intermediary between neighborhoods and arborists, and what he did is he worked with neighborhood communities. He would mark trees in the neighborhood to show which trees should be suitable for treating or replacing. Then he'd write up specifications, put out competitive bids, and let the community review the bids and select contractors. And then he would work with nurseries to get bulk pricing when large number of trees were purchased for replanting programs. This is a good model for cities where the arborists can intervene and work with neighborhood associations to help communities get bulk discounts. Now, why do people get bulk discounts? Let's face it. If you have, when I talk to all the arborists I know, they will readily pass on their cost savings when they have to treat a lot of trees which are right next to each other. It costs them a lot less to treat trees that are all on the same street because they can plan their workload than it does to go driving around all over the place. A good example, one of the arborists I know was working with a neighborhood association, and he called the neighborhood association manager, and then he walked and marked his trees in an afternoon on 57 different properties. Had he had to call each one of those individuals and spend 57 visits on people's kitchen tables to try and solidify lots of contracts, it would cost him a lot more money and time. So he can actually pass that savings on to customers. At Purdue, we have this program called Neighbors Against Bad Bugs. Our monitor is Act Now, Save Trees, Save Money. We are working with master gardeners and extension educators to try and get people to become aware and develop action plans before they start showing symptoms. One of the things that we know is that in Indiana we have about 5,000 active master gardeners who are distributed in 92 counties, and there's usually one master gardener in just about every neighborhood. And this is a really good plus because people tend to trust their neighbors more than they trust the outsiders, and that's the premise. Our outreach and education program provides tools and training. We have a lot of online tools to teach people about ML-4 and provide them with information about the latest research. Then they can bring this expertise into their community and organize local tree tagging events that improve awareness. Now, what's a tree tag? This green tag is what we use, where we will actually tag trees in the right of way. We work in rights of way because we don't want to get involved with trespass suits, and people will. This has a great visual effect. People will see trees on streets that are all tagged green. They want to know what's going on. They see the tags and it says this tree is at risk of being killed by ML-4. Now, if it comes from Purdue or the Extension Service or the Master Gardeners or neighborhood association, they know that we are there to try to protect the community. If it comes from a tree service, it might be looked at as predatory. It might be looked at as unfavorably. So we're there trying to save the trees, and then once people get this information, it usually gets them going in concern. We've done these tags in this particular slide over here. We have Mayor Wozworski tagging the tree with Belinda Kiger, the city arborist in Lafayette, and it brought an awful lot of awareness. Interestingly, this tree was the first tree in Lafayette where ML-4 was found, and at the time that I took this picture in October, I didn't know it, that the following April this tree would be stone dead by ML-4. This only magnifies the difficulty in finding ML-4 early in the area. Recently, actually in the fall of 2011, I was in Indianapolis and I ran a Neighbors Against Bad Bugs program in the King Park area. And the King Park area is a group of neighborhood associations in central Indianapolis. They hooked up with an organization called Keep Indianapolis Beautiful, Kitty, and they are dedicated to planting trees, and they run a neighborhood tree adoption program called Neighborhoods. It's backed by some grants by private donors, including Lilly Foundation. Then they work with the City of Indianapolis Departments of Public Works to find out which trees would be worth saving, i.e. which ones might not be slated for removal. And then it worked with neighborhood associations. They have a nice little website to see how they do a lot of this sort of stuff. But what happens is we have our NAB presentations basically stimulated neighborhoods to work together in a fashion where they can decide which trees they want to save and which trees that they want to remove, so that they can maximize the utility of their dollars. Now, we raise people's awareness about emerald ash borer, and people, once we start getting communities wild, and then we realized down the road that people didn't really know what to do. So when Anne-Marie Nagel came on board this fall, her job was to help us put together a decision-making guide. And this graphic, I want to step you through, is available on our website over here. Okay, come on, this graphic. This graphic works pretty nicely. The first thing you want to do is you want to start with an inventory for ash trees to see how many and where they are. And then we ask, if you want to save your ash trees from emerald ash borer, if the answer is no, then start cutting the trees down before they fall down and kill people. If you decide you want to save some of your trees, they're valuable to the owner, they're healthy with few signs of EAB, located in the right site. If you want to save them, then you can determine how big they are, and then you can determine whether you or a professional needs to be treating it. If you don't know, and at the center of this thing, we're suggesting you hire a tree care professional. Tree care professionals know what they're doing when it comes to trees. You want to get a couple of estimates, ask for referees and insurance, and treesaregood.com is the International Association of Arboriculture's website for helping people find arbors. So, but we hope that by using these kinds of guides, people will be able to act quickly, save trees, and save money. We also have a decision guide that we use to try and remind people that trees can be, that some trees can be saved because they're beautiful, and some trees shouldn't be saved, especially when they're under power lines and the like. And this is we basically say that with trees less than 20 inches in diameter, homeowners can pretty much take care of that themselves, and that those which are greater than 20 inches can be treated with other products. Okay, with the imidacloprid, dinotefuran, and with the unrected benzoin. Also, we have a very big remark here. We want people to be diverse. We don't want people to replant with all red maples because that's just going to cause another problem down the road. I apologize for this noise. Okay. Okay, so here's our website. Emerald ash borer. But if you go to eabindiana.info and click on our Neighbors Against Bad Bug program, it takes you here. It explains all about NAB, and you can download all our different decision-making guides to help you out. So, summary of the big news here. The drought, okay, anybody doing soil applications needs to really think about irrigating the soil, and so that the material can actually get the product up in there. Also, imidacloprid works for do-it-yourselfers up to 20 inches. The emerald ash borer pulse calculator is available, up and running to help estimate costs. And then finally, we've got the Neighbors Against Bad Bugs program as a way to promote communities to act now, save trees and save money. Tree tagging events are quite helpful in getting community attention. Nothing is more disconcerting than driving down the road and seeing a bunch of tagged trees when one of them is on your property and you realize that your prized tree is threatened to be killed. And then we have action guides to help people go through the process. So Anne-Marie Nagel is running the major contacts about Neighbors Against Bad Bugs. You can get this through our website or the emeraldashborer.info website. And when you get on there, you'll see a little moniker here with the pictures of all the states, and you can actually pick which state you want to find out information, or province to find out information that's local. So with that, I'll take some questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Cliff. I have a couple of questions here. One from Tom Mugridge. He wants to know does emamectin benzoate have any killing effect on adults as they chew their way to emerge in the spring? And also, if the tree is injected in the fall of this year, will the emamectin benzoate still be actively killing larvae in 2014? Or would it be better to wait until spring of 2013 to get the full 2-year effect?
Okay. The first question is when the adult beetle chews their way out of their, will emamectin benzoate kill them on their way out? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll tell you what I do know. I do know that emamectin benzoate, as well as the neonicotinoids, are accumulated move up through the plant into the leaves, and that the concentration of products, at least, okay, let me just back up. I don't know about the exact nature of where emamectin benzoate is in the tree at any point in time, but what I do know is based on the information I've read about the neonicotinoid studies. The neonicotinoids are accumulated up into the leaves, and the concentrations tend to be higher there than they are in the xylem and in the phloem, okay, in the cambium tissue. All right. So I think that the concentrations in the trunk is going to be lower than what is inside the leaves. All right. So that means that beetles, and that has to do with the dilution effect. Okay. So the beetles, as they chew out, will probably get a less toxic dose than had they been feeding on the leaves. All right. I do know that emamectin benzoate will kill beetles that feed on leaves for 2 years running. Okay, when it's applied in the spring. Now the question is, what about applying in the fall? Should you wait? Let's say well, right now you can apply the emamectin benzoate until mid-June and still have some effects. But let's say you're past that time and you want to get the maximum number of years of effect. I would make that my decision depending on what the trees are doing in my neighborhood. If you're starting to notice that trees are starting to die now, okay, which means you have maybe 1 out of 5 trees showing signs, okay, that would be 20%. Next year, you're going to have 40% of your trees showing signs, okay, so you'll be really entering the peak years. So I think that if you apply the product in the fall, okay, you'll be guaranteeing that you'll be protecting your trees from beetles that are attacking the following spring, but I don't know how effective it will be 2 springs from there. Okay, actually it should be effective 2 springs from there, but I don't know if it'll be affecting it for 3 springs. So the question is, I guess I'm getting a little bit of FOMO here. I think that if you are really worried about getting a contractor onto your plant, onto your trees next spring, then I would go in with a fall application. All right, because when you have 40% of your trees showing signs, the contractor might be overloaded, and at least you'd have product in your tree this following spring if you put it in the fall. You may not have the longevity that you might want to have, but you would go. But then, if you would apply it in the fall, I would go a fall to fall application. So every other fall, I would apply. Okay, does that answer your question?
Thanks, Cliff. I have one other comment here. In the discussion, can you address that beyond the budget-busting aspects of leaving EAB to attain disaster proportions, communities also find themselves facing public safety issues due to the fact that trees simply cannot be removed as fast as they are dying?
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. When I say budget-busting, the removal costs are the least of your worries. All it takes is that if it falls down, wrecks a car, kills somebody, which happens, which will happen if you have 20% of your trees falling down randomly. The public hazard is huge. So the removing the trees would be the lowest cost possible once the trees are dead. Waiting until you get lawsuits will just magnify your problems.
Okay, I have another person is asking, I am a homeowner who trunk injected several ashes with imidacloprid between 2003 and 2009, then switched to Meccan benzoate in 2010. I now want to deadhead branches from a very large tree, which appears healthy, and cut off midway 2 40 footers that appear healthy in the bottom half but dead at the top. Is that a good idea? Also, when should I inject again?
Okay. I guess the question is that because they were applying in 2003, I'm assuming that this might be in the Detroit area or an area where this must be a Michigan situation. Let me sort of break down that question into things that I can answer. The first thing is if you have trees with dead spots and dead limbs, you want to get them out as soon as possible because ash will notoriously drop limbs really quickly. Once the tree is dead, the wood is the way it holds is rather weak, and trees will just drop, limbs will just drop. So you want to get anything that's dead out, get that out as soon as possible. If you are in a neighborhood where emerald ash borer has been, say, since 2003, was showing symptoms, you are probably past the peak abundance of emerald ash borer. And I would, if your tree is starting to recover and is starting to do nicely, you may want to hold off for a year before you start treating again.
Okay, let's see. We have another one here from Kentucky. Would it be beneficial to treat once in the fall with imidacloprid and again in the next spring, i.e. fall of 2012 and then again in the spring of 2013? Any benefit to doing this?
Nope, there's no benefit at all to doing it. As a matter of fact, I talked to Dan Herms about this, and he says, the best way to store your imidacloprid is inside a pesticide storage shed inside the jug, okay? Because when you pour it into the trunk, when you pour it into the soil, it just basically sits there in the fall until it gets taken up into the tree in the spring. So there's really no advantage to doing that. Especially since we now know that a 1x rate, the single rate applied in the spring, is so effective.
All right. Do we have other questions? I'm going to put up some information about the survey here. Hold on here, let me see if I've got any more questions. Okay, I would like to invite you to fill out our survey and possibly win an EAB University goodie bag. I also would suggest that if you have more questions, to contact either Anne Marie or Dr. Sadof. Okay, wait a minute, here we go. Got some people talking. Okay. You said use a double rate in the fall of the Mike from Kentucky is asking. You said use a double rate in the fall. Is that the rate listed on the label?
It can be, yeah, in some products, yeah, I think Brad answered it quite well. There are some products that are labeled for homeowners, but for the double X rate in the fall. But if the homeowner is doing it themselves, there's no reason to do a double X rate because you can just do it in the springtime. The problem with the spring applications is the springtime is very busy for everybody, and it's really busy for the arborists. So operationally, they have a hard time getting to all their clients. So applying at the double rate in the fall, and there are products where this is labeled, you can actually treat more customers and protect more trees with it.
Okay. Let's see. We have a homeowner who in Carmel, Indiana. Let's see. There's so many things coming on. I'm having a hard time getting these up. Okay.
Okay. The one up there, they have a triage. The last 2 years have been treated with triage this spring. Should they remove epicormic sprouts coming out of the few branches or leave them? I would leave them alone at this point in time because the epicormic branches are providing photosynthate to your tree, and your tree is hurting right now, and I think that it'll use that photosynthate to heal itself, and I would leave it there until after the wave goes through. If you're in Carmel right now, you are like right in the middle of you're entering the peak period.
And I apologize, the password is EABU. I did not get that on the slide. Let's see, and this webinar will be recorded, in fact is being recorded now for viewing later, and hopefully that will be on the emeraldashborer.info website later on today. Are there other questions while I'm here?
Somebody said, how many years is the crest period? Basically, I think the crest period goes from, I think it's a 4-year period. So basically, the crest period is pretty much from the 16% to the 100%. So 16, 32, 64, 100. So it's a 4-year period. I mean, these are all approximations.
All right.
There's one question. Is there a formulation of imidacloprid using the basal stem spray method? The answer to that is no.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Oh. Still not sure if it's okay to cut a 40-foot ash tree in half to promote growth on the lower half. Ooh. You know, any cutting of an ash tree when emerald ash borer is flying is not going to do you a lot of good, okay, especially if you're cutting live tissue, because it's attracted to stressed trees, and I don't know, I think you might actually want to attracting more beetles to your tree. So I don't know. If you're talking about promoting growth, I mean, this is an arboricultural question.
Okay. We've got a couple of minutes left, so if you have more questions, feel free to type them in the chat pod. And we'll be closing up the meeting at noon, or 12 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Thanks everyone for being on, and especially with your questions. Oh, we're talking about natural predators.
Well, there are 3 species that have been released: one egg parasite and 2 larval parasites. And they have been established in Michigan. They've established in sites in Indiana as well. And that's sort of the view of the future. But they will not protect your live ash trees at this point in time. They can protect the next generation of ash trees.
Okay. I know that there have been a couple of native predators here, native to the U.S. that have been found, but as far as their ability to do a lot of help it out as far as control is still being tested. So.
It's not very likely at this point.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up, and like I say, if there's any more questions, feel free to contact Anne-Marie Nagel or Dr. Sadof. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to be shutting down the meeting right now, and hopefully we'll have some more EAB University webinars to bring you some more great information. Thank you again, Dr. Sadof.
Thank you.